If your child gets rejected from their dream school and your first instinct is to tell them everything happens for a reason, you aren't comforting them, you're silencing them. Today's hyper-competitive world, a college rejection letter doesn't just feel like a closed door. To an 18-year-old, it feels like an identity crisis. Today, we're talking about how to manage the fallout of academic failure without crushing your child's ambition. Welcome to Edu Steps, powered by Laddering Your Success. All right, I'm joined here with the squad, starting with the founder of Laddering Your Success, Festus Samoye. Festus, how you doing today, bro?
Doing excellent. Looking forward to this topic. It's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, definitely, man. And of course, we have not only the newly minted doctorate, but the newly minted married man, Dr. Jamar Crawford. How you doing today, brother? And congratulations.
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me today.
For sure, man. All right, so let's start off by talking about the B, right? Identity and leadership. According to data tracked by the National Center of Education Statistics, acceptance rates at top tier institutions have dropped by up to 40% over the last decade, which means historically qualified students who were historically qualified are now facing unprecedented rejection. So your child is not a college rejection letter wrapped in skin. If their identity is tied nearly to the school's logo, you've built their foundation on quicksand. So my first question for the squad is this. When you see parents navigate this, why is it so common for the parent to treat the rejection as a reflection of their own failure as a provider?
You want to go first, Doc?
I would say that they may be looking at the school as some kind of status quo type of situation versus how does that school align to the educational goals and purpose of the student. If we're just trying to go to a school for the name or what comes with that, then maybe we're going to the school for the wrong reason. And that's where we look at the be no do, as you guys constantly talk about, to align the purpose and what can the student get out of that. So I think the whole reasoning needs to be revisited.
Yeah, 100%. I think when you look at, okay, why am I going to the school? Is it the outcome to graduate? Is it the outcome to be an alumni? What is the desired outcome? And so when you look and you say, hey, I need to be associated with this particular school rather than the desired outcome, a lot of times we put extra pressure on ourselves, right? And I also think that sometimes we look at the difference between the value of a place versus the value of a true education. In a situation where you're looking at the value of a place, meaning, hey, this place is going to make all my hopes and dreams happen. What that also means is we no longer identify ourselves as having the potential for success, but we externalize that to something else. So that is going to make me successful. They are going to make me successful versus being confident within ourselves and our sense of purpose and our gifts, talents, and abilities.
Enough said. Wonderfully put, man. Thank y'all for that. That was really good. So for the parents, for the educators, are you mourning the loss of the college bumper sticker? Or are you actually looking at the human being sitting across from you at the dinner table? Who do you need to be so they know it's safe to fail, right? If you refuse to let an admissions committee define your family's worth, type anchor in the comments right now. Let's jump into the no. We're going to go over another statistic. Longitudinal tracking from the National Survey of Student Engagement proves that long-term career success and salary outcomes depend significantly more on what a student does during college, internships, mentoring, than the name on the diploma. Let me say that one more time. Longitudinal tracking shows that long-term career success and salary outcomes, so we're talking about how well you do in your career and the amount of money that you're making, depend more on what a student does during college, the internships, the mentoring, than the name, than the school on that diploma. So pause this episode right now and ask yourself, do you know what your child's backup plan is? If you haven't talked about plan B because you thought it would manifest bad energy, or you thought there's only one option for us, you're not protecting them. You're blindsiding them. So, question for the squad. I want us to think about this data, right? We talked about the importance of internships, the importance of mentoring. We already know about the 50%, right? 50% of people who go to school, their career has nothing to do with their degree, right? So what is the fundamental truth about institutional prestige versus actual skill acquisition that parents miss when they're blinded by rejection?
You're gonna have to repeat that, bro.
I was just about to say, I could put it back in the deal. So I got you. So I want y'all to just think about, especially where we are right now in 2026, what is the fundamental truth about institutional prestige versus actual skill acquisition that parents are missing out on when they're blinded by that rejection letter?
To me, I see the biggest thing as everybody wants to work in the info economy, the knowledge economy. And so people really still have a stigma or look down on people who are doing skilled trades, or just people who are skilled in general. And so you look at something like a surgeon. They have to be skilled, but they also have to be knowledgeable. You see what I'm saying? If they don't have the right diagnosis and they don't really understand, okay, I'm going to remove this piece, whatever, the anatomy, then all the robotics in the world is not going to help you. You see what I'm saying? And imagine somebody who says, oh yeah, I'm going to do surgery on you. Let me AI this first. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing of saying, hey, I'm using AI just to get more information or gather more information, but to have zero knowledge base. And I think we're moving into a space and time where you got to be able to do both. You know what I mean? You got to be able to roll your sleeves up, get dirty, be outside, and you got to be able to be articulate, know what you're talking about, and utilize information well. I think we're in the age of technology and wisdom.
Love that combo. Technology and wisdom. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the truth is there's too much emphasis on the prestige of the school compared to the skills that the students will actually learn. And I think there's too much dependence on the name of the college to try to predict career success compared to the actual skills that student would need to be successful in whatever field that they would do. And so if I went to, I don't want to name any prestigious schools, but if I went to this school, if I went to this school, that just being on the resume may get me in, but that's not necessarily true.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Festus.
No, I was going to say, I like what you said there. Is a lot of times you have to look at the resume and be like, hey, yes, such and such graduated from the school, or sometimes companies hire a lot from the school, but you still have to stand out. When you show up for your first day at work, that's what separates the people who actually did work versus the people who just thought, oh, I just need to go to this school.
Yeah, there's so much that can be found from looking at someone's passion on their resume. As y'all were talking, I was like, would I rather take the student who went to this school and had this level of knowledge? Or would I rather take the student who went to a school that may have not been as well known for that particular degree, but they did this internship, they volunteered for this professor, they volunteered for this activity, they did this on their own in the same degree field. There's something to say for a student who is actively working in that field while they're getting the education. I think you can see a lot of passion from people who do that. You see a lot of purpose. It's, look, I'm just here because they're giving me they're helping me get to the end goal, right? They're filling in the things that I don't know, but that doesn't mean that as soon as I'm learning it, I'm applying it because this is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think you can see who's doing it for doing its sake and doing it because of something that they're really passionate about, something they really love. So it's great points. All right, so we talked about the be, we talked about the know. Now let's jump into the do. Quick statistic. In Family Stress Management Studies by University of Wisconsin-Madison Extension, structured debriefs after high-stakes failures reduce adolescent anxiety metrics by over 30%. So I've got a couple steps here that I want you to follow. All right, step one, conduct a grief audit. Give your student 48 hours to be angry or sad without trying to give them motivational speeches or show them the silver lining. Step two, execute a pivot strategy. Sit down this Sunday and analyze the departmental funding and career placement metrics for their second choice school. So for the squad, in tactical settings, in these settings, when a primary mission fails, you pivot immediately to a contingency plan, right? So this ain't working, we got to switch to this. What is the first logical step an LYS family needs to take to build resilience when the thin envelope arrives?
Man, if I could tag on to that, it's not that the mission changes, it's the strategy to accomplish the mission that changes. And that's the thing that people need to understand about what's called contingency plans. It's contingent on something. So let's say, for example, hey, I'm going to go to this 2-year school, then I'm going to go to this 4-year school. But the transition is contingent on X, Y, or Z, whatever that thing is. So it might be graduation. It might be how many credit hours. If I get these amount of credit hours, it might be, did I do dual enrollment in high school? So I'm already coming with 60 credit hours. So now I'm only going to that 2-year school for 1 semester. And then I'm going to go to you got to look at the contingency plan, because at the end of the day, it's the final outcome that you're looking to accomplish at the end of the mission.
All right, folks, we're out here talking to the parents. Esther, our wonderful parent liaison, has been scoping the interwebs, looking for some of the biggest issues going on right now for parents regarding scholarships, regarding life after high school, life after college, what to do, what programs to take, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to slowly start going over all of these questions and using our wonderful crack staff here at Laddering Success to give some answers to hopefully help, inspire, and help us as we're climbing that ladder to success. All right. So one of our parents is asking the question, what are we doing wrong? My daughter graduated last year with a 4.7 GPA, which included 2 IB program classes and multiple AP classes, while also working part-time, captain of XC team, Key Club, NHS, Hope Squad, theater, and volunteered regularly with our church. She only got partial scholarships last year, and this year, after a wonderful freshman year, all A's, treasurer of her hall council, and nominated onto campus-wide activities board, she received 0 scholarships for next year. She has applied to countless scholarships. So squad, help her answer the question, what are we doing wrong?
Okay, this is a tough one because I know this is going to sound really bad, but sometimes when people are reading those scholarship packages, they could look at a person as an overachiever, that this person is doing all the right things, but the problem is they're not really, particularly in essays and things, letting people know their heart and their passion. So a lot of times as they're screening these scholarship packages, they're looking for a particular type of student, not somebody who's just good at the college game, you know what I mean, or the college going game. They want somebody who maybe they've had some personal struggles they've overcome. Maybe they've had somebody who lines up with the mission and values of that foundation who's funding the scholarship, things like that. So even though you could be doing a lot of the externals, sometimes it comes down to the exact scholarships that you're applying for. So that's the kind of first part. The next part is this. Just because you apply for a lot of scholarships doesn't mean you qualify for them all. So the biggest thing you want to really aim for is applying for those things which you are most qualified, right? So the thing is, if there's, hey, I qualify, this one I really qualify. And then that's how you want to approach it, is the most qualified. And then lastly, just make sure you're hitting all the deadlines on time, things like that. It sounds like she's super busy, so she might not be hitting all the scholarships and their deadlines. And on that deadline note, you have to look at school funding cycles too, because schools have these things called funding cycles. So basically, they have an endowment. Most of the schools have large endowments, and that endowment, the school lives off the interest from the endowment. They don't live off of they're not pulling from the principal. So let's say, for example, the school has $100 million. Well, if you have $100 million, let's say it's kicking you off a 10% interest, then you get $10 million a year out of the $100 million by which the school is able to function. Okay, when that money comes out, they're going to put it in the most critical areas first. Hey, we need this building collapsed last year, or this happened, or that happened. They're going to cover all those critical areas first. Then they're going to say, hey, do we have funds for scholarships? And so depending on what that school has gone through in the last couple of years, that money might not be readily available. And the same thing happens at foundations too. So that's something to consider. So I would never, ever say give up trying, though. Keep trying.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Festus. I think what you said was so powerful, because when you really look at the situation right now in regards to scholarships and post-high school work, there are a lot of folks out there who help students get into the Harvards, get into the Yales, get into the Columbias and the Browns and the Penns. And there's a system, right? There's a system that they follow. There's a way that they show the students attributes and their talents and their skills to get them into those schools and get them access to scholarships. But to your point, there has to be something deeper that's driving you, because if everyone's operating in this system of, we're going to show how great you are. We just went over this in the podcast, right? We talked about the fact that the numbers are down of qualified students that are being accepted into some of your upper echelon schools. So you have to rethink how you're going through some of these things. So to your point, Festus, what's your purpose? What's your story? What's your why? I think that's a super, I don't think what's your why. I'm scarred by education, but more or less, what's your story? And you mentioned something, and I had to put this in my notes, and study the source of who's giving out these scholarships, right? If you're noticing, if you're going to one of the best things you can do on any website is look up their missions and their values, or the About Us, right? Look for the shared characteristics, look for the shared qualities that you all have, and really emphasize that when you're applying for these scholarships or when you're doing your scholarship applications. Also, I love what you said, Festus. Applications for the scholarships do not equal do you qualify for those scholarships. So make sure you're looking for things, when I said earlier, that there's a fit. Lastly, or two more things. We're obviously here because we're trying to pay for school, right? So if we're here, one of my first questions I had was, she says you took 2 AP classes. So my next natural logical question is, did you test out if you took those 2 AP classes? Did you test out of those classes so you didn't have to pay for those classes when you got into college, right? And lastly, did you go local in your scholarship search? I think one of the biggest humps, or low-hanging fruit rather, that people miss are those local scholarships, right? I'd rather rack up 5, 6, 7 of those local scholarships than try to shoot for those big national scholarships, because everybody's applying for those scholarships, right? Stay local, right? What do they say about produce? Eat local, right? Eat local organic, right? Eat them small scholarships. Knock out some of that debt. So I hope that helps, not just the parent that put that there, but other parents who are dealing with those things. Thank you so much, Festus. Thank you so much, Dr. J. I'm Ole Sharonki. Thank you for listening to Edu Steps, powered by Lighting Your Success.